Hello, this is Alexandra Lewandowska. Look before you leap into the deep. Self-isolation, day 17. I must tell you, life here is so intense. So much is going on here. Like today morning, for example, I was visited by a bee. For a moment, I felt like that princess from those fairy tales. You know, when there is a princess locked in a tower and she's visited by a little bee who is a friend of the prince because the prince once helped the bee and now the bee is repaying the kindness or something like that. And this bee is a mix of a delivery man and a motivational speaker. It flies in and says, "Hey princess, hold on, just a few days more. Help is on the way." And the princess is like, "Okay, I'm waiting. I'm waiting." And so we are all waiting. I'm sure you have a different situation at home. Maybe you're not at the point when you will start talking to bees like I do. Hope not. But I think I won't be far from the truth if I say that we are all tired, maybe annoyed, and there's the little voice in us that says, "Let me out, let me out." And it's a natural response. But let's imagine the opposite. Imagine it's the end of the pandemic. The sun is shining because it's probably summer. The soft breeze is gently caressing your hair, inviting you to go outside. The birds are singing. Fresh strawberries ask you to buy them. Everything is open. You can go to work, hopefully. You can go to a concert, to the cinema. And you can even hug people. But you say, "Oh, real life? Yeah, I heard about something like that. But you know what, I'm actually having a virtual tour of the Museum of Processed Food this Sunday, so don't count me in." Well, as much as I understand that if you cannot feast your eyes on something that is real, you would like to see it online, why would you reject real life, especially if other people tell you that it does exist and is available? We all have deep-seated desires, and at some point in life I bet that somebody tells us, stay at home with that desire. It's not safe to go outside. So we keep it inside thinking that one day when it will be safe, we'll let it out. But that day never comes, and after sitting at home for weeks, months and years without any food coming in, the desire is starved, and it dies. And it happens. The thing is, how do you respond to the death of your desire? I think the most common response is just to get used to it. Life is not a fairy tale, I should get over it, I was young and naive. Oh, I actually like virtual museums. Or you may get stuck in your despair, stuck at the tomb of your desire and just water it with your tears. But you may also ask yourself a question: what if my desire is not dead, but just asleep? Let's read the fragment we'll be meditating on this Sunday. It's John 11, verses 1 to 45. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you are going back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? A man who walks by day will not stumble, for he sees by this world's light. It is when he walks by night that he stumbles, for he has no light." After he had said this, he went on to tell them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up." His disciples replied, "Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better." Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I'm glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Then Thomas, called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." And Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she told him. "I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into this world." And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. "The teacher is here," she said, "and is asking for you." When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, the sister of the dead man, "by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Therefore many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did, put their faith in him. Now, there are 3 things that stand out to me in this text. First, death is not a problem. Even now, even while you are alive, when you are dead inside, what you think is dead in you may come alive. Second, don't lose heart if this coming back to life takes time, God's timing. And third, when you feel lifeless, dead inside, you may feel that nobody cares. But that's the thing about death. When you are dead, you cannot see the people who love you. You cannot hear the good words they tell you. And obviously you don't feel loved. But there are people around you who want to see you alive. And on top of that, when you are not fully alive, God himself is moved to tears because he wants you alive. So the plan for tomorrow's meditation is a virtual tour of a graveyard. We will see what has died in us, what are the stones that won't let life inside. Last Sunday we were talking about coming back home. This time we will be leaving home if this home turned out to be a grave. I'm sure our deepest desires can't wait till Sunday, neither can I. See you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Central European Time.